What up, IB in the building, and we back for another video. Now I'm sorry for the lack of uploads in the past, 4 days? I was in the middle of moving literally all my shit down to San Diego because I had to come back down here to move into my apartment for the start of the semester. And yeah, that's kind of the justification for the lack of videos there. And I wanted to have, or this video today is my 2020 mock draft for the lottery picks 1 through 14. I wanted to have this video out before I moved in, but unfortunately time wasn't on my side. So yeah, I want to do this new mock draft because this is like a mock draft after the lottery order has been announced. So I thought it would be important to do this video. So without further ado, let's get into it. With my number 1 pick, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves taking Anthony Edwards, 6'5", 225-pound shooting guard out of Georgia. On a lot of big boards from scouts, Anthony Edwards is the number 1 prospect. His main positives, the main strengths of his game come from his ability to score, put the ball on the floor, finish at the rim, and hit tough shots. Him being the number 1 prospect and Minnesota having a hole at their wing position on the offensive end, I think this is a perfect pick here. He has great size for a shooting guard. He's very strong, and that can help him in the backcourt defensively with D'Angelo Russell, who's not as great of a defensive player. I'm not saying Anthony Edwards is a lockdown defender coming out of college, but he definitely has the potential to be a great defender. I think a triple threat of D'Lo, Anthony Edwards, and Karl-Anthony Towns can be lethal on the offensive end. He's the prospect that I'm most confident in terms of the top 5 prospects, and he is a great fit in Minnesota in my eyes. When you look at James Wiseman, I don't think he can play next to Towns down low, and I don't think LaMelo Ball and D'Angelo Russell can really share the backcourt together. I think Anthony Edwards is the perfect fit here. At number 2, I have the Golden State Warriors taking James Wiseman. I think it's the worst kept secret that the Warriors have been lacking in terms of talent level at the center position over their past 5 or 6 years. James Wiseman can come in and fill that hole kind of immediately with the raw talent that he possesses. And the scouting report on him was that he was kind of a raw athletic center that kind of had a lot of, or not a lot of, but quite a few technical holes. And I think going to the Golden State Warriors, a team that would surround him with spacing, it's a good team for developing players, and it's a team with a hole at center. James Wiseman is the perfect pick at number 2 for Golden State. At number 3, we have Charlotte, and I have them taking LaMelo Ball. Now, Charlotte has a loaded backcourt. They have Devontae Graham, Malik Monk, and Terry Rozier. I don't think any of those players are talented enough to warrant Charlotte kind of straying away from a guard. And I think they take the player who has the most boom potential in terms of star power, and they don't have to worry about fit because they don't really have any player that could be like, okay, I have this player, we're not going to try and take his spot with somebody in the draft. They don't have any of those type of players, so they need to take the player that has the most potential of being a superstar. And of the people available, I have them taking LaMelo Ball. He's an electric player, he's pretty flashy, crafty, has a lot of highlight reel plays, he's a great playmaker, and he is a good shooter, not in terms of shooting consistently, but he can hit tough shots and he has a lot of range. He might have to switch his shooting form a bit like his older brother had to the further he got into his NBA career. But I think it's a no-brainer here. If LaMelo Ball is on the board for Charlotte, they do take him. At number 4, I have Chicago taking Dani FD out of Israel. He's a small forward, and in terms of fit, that's kind of the hole that the Bulls have. It's at small forward. Right now they have Otto Porter Jr. there, but he has a $27 million player option for the next year, and I don't think Chicago really will bring him back, and I don't think they view him as the small forward for the future for them. I think they take Dani FD to fill that small forward role for the future, because in my opinion, their recent draft picks have been really solid in terms of Kobe White, Wendell Carter, and Lauri Markkanen, and bringing in Zach LaVine. They have a lot of young, talented players that I don't think gelled right together because of the coach. Now that the coach is there, I think those pieces can really work well together, and I think they just have to fill whatever holes that they had. The hole is at small forward for them, so I have them taking Dani FD. At number 5, I have Cleveland taking Obi Toppin. I think Cleveland will try and see if Colin Sexton and Darius Garland will work in the backcourt for 1 more year. So I don't think they would take a guard player, at least in this draft, for this year. I think they would try to take the best available. And in my opinion, that is Obi Toppin. And it's at a position in which will be an area of need because I don't really view Kevin Love as the power forward on this team for much longer. They'll probably try to trade him within these next 2 years. Andre Drummond is a relatively young center. Hopefully they can get him back on a relatively team-friendly deal. They have a hole at power forward because at small forward they have Kevin Porter Jr. filling that. I think Obi Toppin could be the power forward for the future. He is an athletic, electric power forward, high flyer. Decent shooting ability can help him in terms of spacing the floor for Andre Drummond. Obi Toppin, in my opinion, is a good pick here for the Cavs. At number 6, I have the Hawks taking Tyrese Haliburton. Played point guard. He's a good playmaker. He's not the most creative or crafty ball handler, but he was able to find the open man and get to the rim quite a bit in Iowa State. And he was a good shooter in terms of shooting percentage. I think he shot over 40% from 3. The only knock on him is really his shooting form. It's kind of slow and it's a bit, I don't really know how to explain it, but it just doesn't look natural. He's going to have to tweak it a bit if it doesn't work in the NBA. But Tyrese Haliburton has good size and he is a great defender. Tyrese Haliburton is 6'5", so I think the Hawks would take him in an effort to have him run the shooting guard position along with Trae Young. Since Tyrese Haliburton is a good defender with great size, I think he could help Trae Young in the backcourt defensively, and he can serve as a secondary ball handler and allow Trae Young to work off ball. At number 7, I have the Pistons taking Killian Hayes out of France. He's a 6'5" point guard. The Detroit Pistons don't really have players. They don't really have a lot of talent on their team, so I just would have them taking the best available player, and in my eyes, that is Killian Hayes. At number 8, I have the Knicks taking Cole Anthony. Now, Cole Anthony is not really projected to go in the lottery, and if he is projected to go in the lottery, he's projected to go at the tail end of it. But this is a move that I could see the Knicks making. They're obviously disappointed with not having a top 3 pick. They wanted to get LaMelo Ball to fill their point guard role. And the Knicks are a team that has a lot of pressure on them from the outside, from the fans, to add talent, to add excitement to the team. Cole Anthony was a top 3 high school prospect. He had a lot of hype around him. You saw all the Ball is Life mixtapes, but for some reason it didn't work in North Carolina for him, and neither for that team. That North Carolina team did not win a lot of games. Cole Anthony, he is a score-first point guard. He's an okay passer at the point guard position, but you can obviously see that he prefers to put the ball in the hoop himself. The Knicks have a hole at point guard. They've had that hole at point guard for the past I don't know how long, and they've tried to fill it with Frank Ntilikina and then trading for Dennis Smith Jr., and it just hasn't worked. I could see the Knicks getting desperate and reaching for a player that they think can really boom for them, and I think that player could be Cole Anthony. The Wizards taking Isaac Okoro. Isaac Okoro, he is a wing player that played at Auburn. He's about 6'5", 6'6", with good size, 215 pounds. And the main strength of Isaac Okoro's game is his defensive ability. He's one of the best defensive players in this entire draft. He was a lockdown defender in college. And my fault, he's not 215 pounds, he's 225 pounds, so he has great size for being 6'6". He played a lot of shooting guard in college, but I think going into the NBA, with the NBA getting a lot smaller at each position, I think he can play either shooting guard or small forward. And at number 9, the Wizards, their main weakness of their team this entire year was defense. I think they were one of the worst defensive teams in the entire league. I think they had like the worst defensive rating. I mean, when you're playing with players, John Wall wasn't in the team because of injury, and he's a good defensive player. Bradley Beal is not really known as a defender like that. Then you have Rui Hachimura. He's a rookie that was struggling on that end. Thomas Bryant is an okay defensive big. Mo Wagner's not much on the defensive side. And Davis Bertans is just a sharpshooter, not much on the defensive side. That was a recipe for disaster. And they had Isaiah Thomas, 5'9", Isaiah Thomas, for about 3/10 of the season. The Wizards need a lot of help on defense, and adding Isaac Okoro could be that help. At number 10, I have the Phoenix Suns taking Patrick Williams. Patrick Williams is a small forward out of Florida State, and he has a lot of two-way potential in terms of 3 and D. He's very athletic, very rangy. With Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton, who are like your 2 players that are your offensive cornerstones, you kind of have to surround them with players that don't really need the ball in their hands like that much, that can space the floor, and that are multi-positional on the defensive end. Patrick Williams fits all of those check marks, so I have them taking him at number 10. At 11, I have the Spurs taking Oneko Okongwa. The Spurs were another team that surprisingly struggled on the defensive end. I say surprisingly because Greg Popovich was their coach, and we know Greg Popovich, he's one of the best defensive coaches of all time. But the Spurs do need help on the defensive end, and Oneko Okongwa was one of the better defensive bigs in this entire draft out of USC. He's about 6'9", which would make him small for a center. Not too small for a center. There's 6'9" centers that play in the league today. And since he can't really space the floor that well, I think the center position would be his future. He doesn't really provide that much on the offensive end, so the Spurs would kind of have to develop him there. He's a bit raw. But the Spurs are another good developmental team, and I think this could be a good place for them to take Oneko Okongwa. At number 12, I have the Kings taking Precious Achiuwa out of Memphis. This is another kind of raw big man with a lot of athleticism. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know much about Achiuwa's game, but I do think he's one of the top players in terms of best available, in terms of value that you could get at the number 12 pick. And I think the Kings would just go best available here and take Precious Achiuwa. At number 13, I have the Pelicans taking Devin Vassell. Devin Vassell, he's a player that projects to be a good 3-and-D player in the league. He's another lengthy wing player out of Florida State like Patrick Williams, but I think he has a bit more shooting and shot creation potential. I think the Pelicans could use a bit more shooting around Zion Williamson in terms of knockdown shooters, and a bit more players that are bona fide two-way defenders. Ingram is solid on the defensive end. Zion is really lacking in terms of perimeter defense. So I think you want to try and surround him with 3-and-D players as much as possible on the wing positions. Devin Vassell fits those check marks, so I have them taking him at number 13. And at number 14, to round out the entire lottery, we have the Boston Celtics. I have them taking Aaron Nesmith out of Vanderbilt. Now, Aaron Nesmith he literally is the best shooter in this entire draft. Aaron Nesmith shot 52.2% on three-pointers on 8.2 attempts per game. Yeah, I think that solidifies him as the best shooter in the entire draft. He averaged 23 points per game. The main weakness for Boston is their lack of bench scoring. They don't really have a player off the bench that can shoot the lights out or create a shot for themselves time in and time out. Aaron Nesmith can come in and really fill the need of scoring for this Boston Celtics team off the bench. He could play very well off of Marcus Smart, who is a great passer off the bench. And I don't think he'll come in right away and be the shot creator that we saw in Vanderbilt, but I think over time he could develop into that. So I think Aaron Nesmith at number 14 is a perfect pickup for the Boston Celtics. That's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, and if you're new here, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Anyways, like I was saying, thanks for watching. It's been your boy IB. I'll catch y'all later. Peace.